Welcome to Killer Cradles, everything I've ever learned about cradles and more. There are various philosophies and approaches to wrestling, and no one can deny the success athletes have had when they focus solely on takedowns. Being solid in the standing position is the name of the game. So befitting that philosophy, I'm going to spend time in these DVDs on what I'm going to refer to as terminal takedowns. And for that matter, terminal riding and terminal reversals. If you want me to say it another way, I'm going to teach you how to pin people. If that excites you that I used the word takedown earlier, then okay. Today we're going to go over terminal takedowns. You see, coaches typically say there are 5 phases to wrestling. There are takedowns, reversals, riding, escapes, and pinning. But that's not really true. There are only 3, and why pinning is sometimes referred to as a lost art. Because riding and pinning aren't phases. Riding is a component part of pinning, and pinning is an extension of takedowns. It's also an extension of reversals, an extension of riding, and on occasions, even an extension of escapes. So for the next few hours, I'm going to explain that in much greater detail. I'm going to make you bonus point crazy. To start the process, I'm going to teach you that what I call the finish to beginning instruction. This is important, coaches. Finish to beginning is opposite of what you've learned in the past. Finish to beginning. And here's what I'm talking about. As we were just talking about, there are 5 phases of a takedown. Typically 5 phases. We'll talk about our stance. We're talking about motion left and right, forward and back. We're talking about level change. So we have stance, motion, level change. And then after stance, motion, and level change, we have penetration, where we're attacking into our opponent's legs. Once we come in and attack, then we're going to talk about finishing it up. So we have stance, motion, level change, penetration, and then the finish up, which is the throwdown part of the takedown. So there's 5 phases. And for those 5 phases, lucky you get 2 individual bout points. What I want you to have, I want you to be greedy. I want you to end up with 5 bout points. So if we add a 6th phase to your takedown, the idea in pinning, if you want to become a good pinner, if you want to become a pinner, then you introduce pinning into everything that you do as a coach. Takedowns, reversals, escapes, riding, everything is a pin. And here's how you do it. You add a 6th phase to a takedown. So on our stance, motion, penetration, level, finish up, we add a half Nelson, we add a headlock, we add a cradle, we add a bar arm. Okay, as an example we're doing here, what we're going to do is a motion, stance, here, level change, penetrate in on a high crunch, change off to a double. As I take you down, lock into the position, change to a bottom leg cradle as an example here. Elbow deep, lock my hands, taking over, and we look for the fall. The idea is, how much longer did it take me to execute that than a regular takedown? Stance, motion, penetration, and finish up. That takes, say, 6 seconds to do. I need 2 more seconds and I can add that on. So as a coach, if you go over, say, 15 minutes of takedown drills in your practice room, and let's say you spend 10 minutes on riding and another 10 minutes on reversals. So you spent 15, 10, and 10, that's 35 minutes of drills. Now, what happens, you run out of time for pinning. When do I stick pinning in there? You don't have enough time in practice to do that, and why pinning becomes a lost art. But pinning is not a phase of wrestling. Pinning is an extension of what we're doing. So if you can do a pin at the end of all your takedowns, if you can go into a pin at the end of all your reversals, if you can go into a pin at the end of all your rides, then what you did is, how many minutes have you practiced pinning? 35 minutes you've been doing pinning. 15 for takedowns, 10 for riding, and 10 for reversals, but 35 minutes for pinning. So what are you going to be good at? Pinning. And how long did it take you? You didn't take another 15 minutes out of practice and throw the pin in. So the idea is add takedowns. Here, as an example, what you can do, ankle picks, as an example with an opponent. Okay, when you do down and you pick up an ankle pick, boom, step 1. Next thing is to take 1 giant step forward and put a half Nelson on. Finish with pin. Okay? Fireman's carry. Here, instead of just practicing the fireman's carry and coming in and throwing it down and finish your move and get up, just turn and drop into a headlock. Hold in here for the pin and then get up. How much longer does it take you to do that? A post double. He puts his hands up, post the leg, double, on the way down, change hands, elbow joint, back of the knee joint, elbow deep, lock your hands, beautiful cradle. Come on back up. So the idea is you add a sixth phase to your takedowns. Put a sixth one in there. The extra one phase of that takedown gives you 3 bonus points. You did 5 phases for 2. Do 1 more extra, and you get 3 more points, or the opportunity to have a terminal takedown. Finish it with a pin. So there you have it. So what we want to do is we always want to add a 6th phase to all the drills we have. We're in a down position on a switch. He's on top of me on the left side. I do a switch position. As soon as I come out of here, again, elbow deep, over top, hands locked. I take him on over to a cradle. On a side roll, if he's on me, as I'm looking for a side roll, turning. As soon as he hits, okay, change hands, headlock. Change hands, half Nelson. The idea is I'm drilling more than a side roll. I'm drilling more than a fireman's carry. I'm drilling more than just the movements. I'm adding 1 more phase to everything. Then you become a great pinner. And that's what it's all about. Okay, now, the finish to beginning. Huge, coaches, pay attention, huge. Finish to beginning. What we're gonna do here is, have you ever gotten kids that shot in on a takedown, stopped, kid sprawled, spun behind you, kid, you went, ah. Afterwards, you take Johnny aside, sit down. Johnny, you're not paying attention. I told you time and time again, don't stop. You get in that shot, you're stopping, you're not driving through. If you guys ever had that problem, I'll tell you, every coach has that problem. And you know why? It's your fault. It's your fault, coach. Because here's how you teach it. Okay, guys, everybody get down stance. You get down stance. Okay, good, guys, thanks. Now you elbows in, knees bent, feet shoulder width apart, bench stance. Great. All right, now I want you to do this motion. So we're gonna keep down stance and motion. So they teach motion. And you say, great, guys. Now remember, elbows in, knees in, and now motion is we want to keep our feet still shoulder width apart as we move. Okay, good job, guys. Okay, now what we're gonna do, we learned that, now we have to learn the level change. So level change is changing your level to that of what you're attacking. If I'm after his rib cage, I want to lower my level to his rib cage. If I'm after his hips, I've got to change my level down to his hips to attack. If I'm going after a low single down at his ankle, before I shoot, I have to lower my level down to that level. Come in. So I level change to that. I'm taking. Okay, let's try that a couple times. Guys, stance. Okay, motion now. Okay, level change. Practice level change. Up and down. All right, move around a little bit. Level change. Good, guys. That's what I had in mind. Looking good. Great job, guys. Now we're going to have to learn penetration. Penetration is going from point A to point B. Isn't this the way you teach? Isn't it the way you teach? And you talk about penetration. You have drop steps. You go from one end of the room to the other. Drop step, drop step, drop step. Back, back, back. Good job, guys. All right, let's put it together now. Stance, motion, level change, penetration. Good job. Now, once you're in on the tight, high crotch, double leg, whatever, here's how you finish it up. And you spend time teaching, change off, lock it at the knee, drive across him, flare his legs out. Okay, let's try that. So you do that a couple times. And when you're done teaching 5, 10, 15 minutes of a high crotch, so we'll change to a double as an example. What you've done is you've taught the 5 phases of the takedown. Stance, motion, level change, penetration, finish up. But you've stopped. You have stopped between each phase so you can teach the next phase, right? There's your problem. You're teaching Johnny to stop. Phase 1, stop. Okay, good. Let's try phase 2. Now stop. Okay. You've taught him to go phase by phase by phase. Stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. And you wonder why they stop in a match. Should have V8. Come on, coach. Okay, so I always teach backward, forward, finish to beginning. Finish to beginning. The way you teach your cradles, your half Nelsons, your bar arms, my opinion, the way you teach takedowns is finish to beginning. As an example, you get kids in on good finish position here. Oh, let me talk one more time. When we're doing this, if I spend 5 seconds on each phase, I spend 5 seconds on stance, 5 seconds on motion, 5 seconds on level change, 5 seconds on penetration, and then we stop. We stop. We start on stance. We did 5 seconds. We stop. Then we go stance and level change for 10 seconds. We stop. Then we go level change, stance, and penetration. So basically, when I'm done, I've spent a total of 5 seconds learning the finish up. I've spent 10 seconds learning the penetration finish up. I spent 15 seconds learning the level change, penetration, finish up. I've spent 20 seconds on motion, level change, penetration, finish up. And as I back out, I increase the amount of time I spend at that. So what I'm damn good at is stance. And what I'm worse at is my finish up. Shouldn't it be the reverse? Shouldn't it be? I want my kid to be best at the finish up. I don't care if he can stand very well. Usually he's not danger to himself when he's standing over here. But when he gets in tight, I want him to be able to finish. I want him to spend 25 seconds of the drill on the finish up, 20 on the penetration, 15 on the level change, 10 on the motion, 5 on the stance. So as he gets closer to his opponent, as he gets further into the shot, into the attack, he becomes stronger and stronger because he's drilled it longer and longer. So, high crotch, we get in here, head up, leg out to the side here, down at the back of the leg, over here back of the leg, pushing with our head, coming to the side here. I'm going to flare his legs out, I'm taking him down. Okay, so here, step, boom, and down. Come on back up. Do it again. So we're going back in. Flare, change, finish. Okay, we'll have the kids drill that. Now we go back and we say, okay, everybody get in the squatted position here. So now what we're going to do, you teach them the drop step. And when they do the drop step, they go straight into their finish. So now it's ready, begin. Step in, high crotch, change, and down. Okay, good. Now notice we're not stopping in the middle of a hold. All right, now what we're going to do, Bob, guys, is we're going to learn level change, level change, level change, drop step, level change, penetration, finish up. Okay, you ready? Ready to begin, guys. Level change, shot, and finish. Okay, come on back. Now we teach motion. Motion, level change, penetration, finish up. So I'm backing out. So by the time I'm done with this, they've learned the high crotch just like you taught it, but they've never ever stopped in the middle of the hold to learn the next phase. They've stopped, but it's out here, not in here. So when they start to shoot, they finish the whole way through it until they get the guy down. And when you're done with the finish to the beginning instruction, which is back asswards from what you're used to, the most important phase of this is the finish up. And they've spent a majority of their time on the finish up. That's the key to finish to beginning instruction. Go backwards. It'll serve the purpose that you have in mind, coach. And we'll do the same thing in a couple minutes in the down position on cradles and pinning combinations. So with that segment, I hope you see the idea of what I'm trying to put together. In order to become a bonus point coach, you need to teach the sixth component of a takedown. For the wrestler to become a bonus point athlete, he has to learn the sixth component of a takedown, sixth component of riding, sixth component of reversals. And to maximize your retention, you need to use the finish to beginning instruction. People ask me all the time, how did you go about becoming a great pinner, Wade? Well, I've already told you that. 2 ways. The first, I made pinning the sixth phase of my takedowns, the sixth phase of my reversals. It was the way I rode. It was the way I thought. The second way is just as being good on your feet is a mindset, being a good pinner is a mindset too. Just as you have to believe you're going to score when you get your hands locked in on your opponent's legs, you have to believe the match is going to end when you lock your hands on a cradle or when you sink a half Nelson. Okay, I hear you, Wade. I understand. But how do I get this confidence? Well, are you ready? Here's the answer. All drills end in a pin. Let me say it again. All drills end in a pin. A switch ends with a near cradle to the pin. A fireman's carry ends in a headlock to the pin. A Granby roll ends in a half Nelson to the pin. A double leg ends in a bottom leg cradle to a pin. Are you getting the idea? The sixth phase of the takedown. Add it to your takedowns. The sixth phase of a reversal, the sixth phase of riding. Add them all to pins. It's not that you have to end the drill with back points. You have to end the drill with the pin. So as you progress through the DVDs, you'll begin to see what I mean and how very easy pinning really is if you make pinning a phase of every one of your drills. All right, here we go. We're building blocks We're putting together a skyscraper that is pinning, skyscraper that is takedowns. The idea, you want to fast forward through this stuff, you can. This stuff's going to be a little bit boring right now. Go get a glass of water. It's a little dry. You might have to drink something to get through it, but it needs to be said. You need to understand this, so as we go through and we get into the meat and potatoes of the cradles, of the pinning combinations, you have the basis on which everything works. This is the critical part. Don't fast forward through this. Okay, now we have to talk about cradles. Cradles are the most powerful pinning combination known to man. Of all the pinning combinations there are, half Nelsons, headlocks, fireman's carries into a headlock, bar arms, legs, all the other pinning combinations, if you put them together in one big pile and come up with a number, let's say 86, 122, I don't know, but whatever that number is, there's twice as many cradles available to you than all the other pinning combinations known to man. So if you're going to go hunting in a 1 acre plot over here, or a 1 acre plot over here, and there's 20 deer in this 1 acre, and there's 2 deer over here, where are you going to go hunting? Where the 20 deer are. You have a better chance of getting a deer. Which pinning combination are you going to go for? It's going to be cradles. There are more cradles available to you than all the pinning combinations known to man. And very, very, very seldom, if never, how do you like that first statement? If never, do you see this happen when a guy has a cradle. You don't see a potentially dangerous call that you see on a half Nelson, that you see when you're running a chicken wing or a bar arm. So cradles are even more special because they don't get called, the match doesn't get stopped because of a potentially dangerous or illegal situation with a cradle, as you'll see with a bar arm or half Nelson. So that's another thing. There's more of them than any other pinning combination, they're safer than any other pinning combination, and they're deadlier than any other pinning combination. If you see a state semifinal, a state champion from the previous year getting dusted in the semifinals of the senior year, you bet it's going to be in a cradle. You're not going to bar arm the defending state champ or put a half Nelson on and turn his butt over and stick him. But you could catch him in a cradle. All great athletes, if they're going to get pinned, are going to get pinned in a cradle. Why? Because they're deadly, because your feet are in the air. When your feet are in the air, you can't be bridging, you can't be rolling, you can't be fighting. It's very difficult to do it when your feet are in the air, and that's what a cradle does. So cradles, cradle, cradle. You have to go for cradles. They're the easiest to find because they're everywhere. A half Nelson, you have to be on top of the guy to put a half Nelson on. A bar arm, you have to be on top of the guy to put it on. A cradle, you can be from standing. You can't put legs on a guy when he's standing, when you're standing looking at him, but you can cradle him from there. You can cradle him when you're underneath him. Can you put a half Nelson on when you're on being ridden? No. Okay, then you certainly can cradle a guy when you're on top. So cradles are available to you in all three positions. They're more of them than anything else. They're safer than anything else. They're deadlier than anything else. Why not cradle? Cradle is the name of the game if you're going to stick people, and that's why we're going after it right now. Now, let's talk about pinning and the clock principle. Here this pertains to down wrestling, whether we're talking about reversals, whether we're talking about pinning, whether we're talking about riding or cracking a guy down, it's the clock principle. If you notice, what we'll do here is I put on the clock in the circle here, little pieces of tape, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and so on. And no matter where your opponent is, here, Jake, if you would lay down, please, put your head at 6 o'clock. When your opponent's laying down, his head is always at 12 o'clock. Regardless of where he is on the mat, his head always points at 12. So you use his head as the gauge. His feet always point at 6 o'clock, 3 and 9 o'clock. Okay, now he has 4 major appendages. Left arm, left leg, right leg. And each one of the appendages are responsible for 3 hours on the clock. His right arm is responsible for anything that happens in wrestling between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock. His right leg is responsible between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Okay? His left leg over here, 6 to 9, left hand 9 to 12. When you become a really good wrestler, on a scale of 1 to 10, 6 or above, your hand goes an extra hour. So the right arm is responsible between 11 and 4, really, when you get to be good. But when you're a beginning wrestler, 1 to 6 on scale 1 to 10, up through high school level, basically 3 hours per limb is basically the way it works. Now, on this limb, you say, okay, so what? What does this mean to me as a coach? Here's how you teach little Johnny. We talk about the tree limbs and how you turn a guy over. Let's assume now that he's a tree. If you can stand up, Jake, or this is something you do, simply, you can do this with elementary kids. You wouldn't do it at your high school. It's a little, young for that, but the idea is, okay, we have a tree here, and the tree has limbs out here, and isn't this nice? And I'm a mean old lumberjack. I'm going to chop, 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 timber, and the tree falls down, and the tree has its limbs out to the side. Now you ask, well, Johnny and Bobby and Dave and Judy, can this tree be rolled over? If I come over here and start rolling the tree, will that tree roll? And the obvious answer is no. Why not? Because he has limbs on the tree. If we can turn this tree into a telephone pole, chop, 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 saw, 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 and get rid of a limb, chop, 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 saw, 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 and get rid of a limb, now we have a telephone pole. Telephone poles are old trees. They got rid of the limbs. So they take a tree, they cut the limbs off, now you got a telephone pole. A telephone pole will roll, whereas a tree will not roll if it has its limbs on. A wrestler is a downed tree. His job when he's on the bottom is to become a tree. He got to get his arms out or his leg out as a brace, so it's hard to roll the tree over to its back. My job is to be the lumberjack. My job is to chop, 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 saw, 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 and get rid of limbs. If I'm going to turn him over in a half Nelson, bar arm, cradle, whatever. So if I have a regular half Nelson, although this tape is certainly going to be about cradles, but the concept is pinning, the concept is riding, the concept is spending time on top of the guy, and how do we do that? So if I would have a half Nelson on here, and I'd want to roll him over, he's going to say, no. He's going to put his hand out. No, I'm not going over. So I'm going to go chop, 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 saw, saw, saw. I can either reach under, one-on-one, pull the arm in. I can go in elbow joint to elbow joint and pull the arm in. I can reach over top, get the hand, and pull it in. And then there are those guys who have biceps bigger than your biceps, and I know what that's all about because I wasn't the biggest guy in my weight class. So if I can't bring Muhammad to the mountain, I bring the mountain to Muhammad. If I can't pull that hand in because he's bigger than I am, what I do is I put a little glue on his palm, I glue it down, take a nail and a hammer, I make that hand stay still. And I'm just going to do is hold that hand still, and I'm using my legs here to slide him, to drive him over his hand. Doesn't matter. Pull the hand in, drive him over, you get rid of the limb. Once that limb is gone over there, the tree becomes a telephone pole, the telephone pole will roll. So we're talking about limbs and trees and clocks. Now, on our half Nelson, I'm going to combine the trees and the limbs and the clock. Once I get rid of this limb, and this limb was responsible for what, 3 hours of the clock? 12 to 3. Right arm, 12 to 3. I always want to go halfway between the hours of which I'm controlling. Halfway between 12 and 3 o'clock is 1:30. So when I'm on this side of the guy and I have a half Nelson, I always, always, always drive at 1:30. No other time. 1:30, 1:30, 1:30. Not 1, not 2, not 2:15. 1:30. Okay? Half Nelson, get the arm in. I'm going straight up at 1:30 on my drive. Another thing I'll throw in there on half Nelson, this is like a bonus instruction here. This is not cradles, but the idea is when you have a bar arm, when you have a half Nelson, with my head, where's my head located? If my head is over top of his back here, I'm not in a strong position to turn the guy over. If my head is over top of his head, I'm going to get his attention. If my head is further forward, where if I would salivate and drool and it land on the mat in front of his face, I'm going to crush him. He's going to be wishing I'm not there. Half Nelson bar arms. Half Nelson, I'm back here. I have a so-so chance of turning them over. If I lean forward, I start getting weight up on top, and my head's now over top of his head, I got a lot more weight on him. If I can get my head out there further over top of his head, I am certainly getting his attention. Same with the bar arm. Good, better, oh shit. Okay? As far as I go forward with my head, I have a stronger half Nelson, I have a stronger bar arm. So that's a little on the side here of cradles, but the idea is shifting weight forward. I get rid of the limb, 1:30, drive him up and down at 1:30. All right. Now, let's take this tree concept and go a little further with it. This is how we break him down, referee's position. When you're riding a guy, how you use this clock. What does this have to do with cradles? Not much right now, but it has to do with the down wrestling. Once you learn this clock and the tree principle, then all your pinning combinations, be it half Nelson bar arms, headlocks, cradles, whatever, fall into place, and you start understanding down wrestling. Okay. From here, if I'm going to do a chop and tight waist, I'm chopping his left arm up, I'm riding the side, so I'm controlling one appendage, his left appendage. His left arm is responsible between 9 and 12, halfway between is 10:30. So when you're chopping a guy's arm, there's only one direction you take this guy to, 10:30. Kids have a tendency to start chopping and pulling him over here on the side. This is when they start stepping over you, or sitting out on you. You know, sit here, sit out, and you get stuck here, and then you're in a scramble position because you took him over at 9 o'clock. You take him at 10:30. Let me ask you a question. If I took him up at 12, since I'm getting rid of that arm, would he go down? Probably not, because he has two appendages that are responsible for 12 o'clock. Left arm, right arm are responsible for 12. At 3 o'clock, he has two appendages, right arm, right leg. At 6 o'clock, he has both his legs. 9 o'clock, left and left, arm and leg. So once I chop this arm here, if I take him at 12 o'clock, he's going to say no, because that hand's out there as a brace. If I take him over at 3 o'clock, he can sit out, or he can get that leg out there, and it makes it difficult. If I kick him in the butt here, and I take him up at 10:30, he'll come down, and I can come back on top. So, how do you ride a guy? How do you break him down, depending upon what you have control? If I'm going to do a crossface, and I reach across here, pull the crossface in, what do I have? Right arm. Right arm's responsible for 12-3. Halfway between, 1:30. So when I'm driving here on my crossface, which we're going to go into crossface cradles here, we'll now learn at what time we drive the guy at in order to make the crossface cradle work, which we'll come back to on that. But again, tying these things together. Here, take him up to 1:30. And he'll go over. You drive him over at 3 o'clock from here on the crossface. I got his right arm. His right arm's responsible for 12-3. If I drive there, he's going to say no. He's going to put his foot out at 3 o'clock because that foot is responsible between 3 and 12 or 6. So the idea is halfway between of what you have controlled. If I would reach over and get far ankle, far elbow, and I got left arm, or right leg tied up, I'm now tying up 12-6. So I go halfway between 3 o'clock. If I grab both, I just grab a 3, and he can go over. Okay, if he's on top of me, and I want to do a side roll as an example, I reach up, I grab his wrist. Where should I roll? I called it a side roll, didn't I? You don't go to your side on a side roll. I only have his right arm controlled. I don't have his right leg. If I went to 3 o'clock to my side, he'd get his foot over here as a brace, and that would stop me from doing the roll. Since I have his right arm trapped, his right arm responsible between 3 and 6 o'clock, 12 and 3, I go at 1:30. Hold here, and I start rolling to 1:30, and he'll go over. He can't stop me at 1:30. He can stop me at 3 o'clock. Again, a side roll is not a side roll. We throw you off by misnaming things. So now we're getting the idea of this clock principle and the limbs. If I want him to roll a certain way, get rid of the limb. Okay, now, what we need to do is talk about pinning if he's on his back. Again, I apologize for spending an exorbitant amount of time on the basics here, but these are things we have to go over in order for you all of a sudden to go, I see how it works, I see how that works, all this time. And all of a sudden everything falls together, because once you understand the limb tree clock principle, then everything in a down position becomes very easy to do, because you understand what direction you should drive at. And it also makes you a better coach, because when your kids get in those crazy positions that you've never seen before, and you go, and he goes, Coach, what do I do from here? And you go, and you don't know the answer to the question. There's times I don't know the answer to the question. You know, Johnny will get into some crazy position. But once you understand these basics, you can tell him what to do. Shift his weight forward, get his weight on his hands, or take him over the leg you have, controlled there. So you know if you have a limb trapped 3:30, 1 o'clock, whatever time you have to take in that. So it can make you a much, much better coach in positions you've never seen before once you understand how the basics of the down position works. Clock and tree limbs. When a guy's on his back, does he want to be a telephone pole or does he want to be a tree? Does he want to have his arms out or does he want to pull his arms in? Well, obviously, when he's on his belly, he wants to be a tree, so he doesn't roll over. When he's on his back, he wants to voluntarily become a tree, a telephone pole. He'll pull his arms in so he's able to roll and get off his back. So what I've got to do in order to hold him on his back, and we'll talk about this with cradles too, here we'll do it with half Nelson, is the basic principles of pinning is chest on chest. Get your weight on his chest. Chest on face is much better than chest on chest, but either one will do. Get out at right angle. But what I'm doing with my body is I'm going to grow limbs on his telephone pole. He doesn't want to be a tree, he wants to be a telephone pole so he can weasel his hand between my chest and his chest so he can belly down. He wants to get his legs back around and tie his legs into my legs here so that we become parallel and become two telephone poles tied together where we can roll. If I can stay at a right angle, a T, an X, whatever a right angle would be with our bodies here, okay, the better chance I have of pinning them. So, what we're going to do is chest on chest. If I'm pinning them, if my chest is pointing down, I go chest on chest, I get off my knees. I get off my knees, that makes him carry my weight. If my butt is down and my chest is pointing up, I do the same concept. I can't get off my knees because I'm already off my knees, but what I'm going to do now is get off my butt. And it shifts all my weight onto him. So when I'm holding him down here. So if I'm belly up, I get off my butt. If I'm belly down, I get off my knees. So either or, it puts weight onto him. I want to get out to the right angle, and I want to build limbs on his tree. Okay, so if he's a log, this is the body part of the tree, the trunk of the tree. So if I have a half Nelson as an example, I want to have one limb out here, one limb growing out the right side of him. I want to have a limb growing out over top of his head. I have my half Nelson in, and my other hand is a limb coming out the right side. Limb, limb, limb on his tree. The tree cannot roll as long as it has limbs on it. So we're putting tree, 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 limb, limb, limb. Okay? So when we're trying to hold a guy down, we're trying to put limbs on his tree, on his telephone pole, so he can't roll off his back. So it's very basic to understand. When you're on your back, you give up being a tree and you get into a telephone pole position. Get your hand between his chest. You're trying to work your way back to your belly. When you're on your belly, you want to be a tree. You want to get limbs out so you don't get turned over. Top guy, in order to turn you over, got to get rid of the limbs. Bottom guy keeps the limbs out. The reverse is true when you get stuck on your back. So there you have the ups and downs, on your knees, off your butt, and reuse of our cradles. Now, the last thing when we're trying to roll a guy over here, if you can picture, if you would, a 5-foot, 10-foot in diameter sequoia. Okay, and I've chopped it down, I cut it about 20 feet up, I got a 20-foot piece of sequoia. It's about 10 feet high, big old thing. And Dad says, move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get here, I'm going to start pushing the tree, I'm going to rock it, try to get the tree to roll. And once the tree starts to roll, if I can take a red spray can, spray the bark where my hands start, and I start pushing it, and I get it going, and it starts to roll, that bark is going to start rolling. And as it goes up, if I keep my hands on those red dots, what happened? I get over the tree I go. In order to keep that tree going, once I get it started, I've got to do this. Hand goes up, I come down. So there I can keep the tree rolling as my hand keeps on going down on a new segment of bark that comes up on the tree. You don't keep your hands on the same location. That's how you keep that tree rolling. Once my hands are on top of the tree, I can't push anymore. I've got to have my hands on the side of him. He's that tree. My chest is going to drive him over on a half Nelson, on a bar arm, on a cradle, whatever. So when I'm right here, those two red spray dots of spray paint will be on his side right here. So I'm pushing into his chest with my chest in a second, I'll show you. But as I'm pushing this way, look, he's starting to roll. Once he gets to here, if I keep my hands right where I started, they start sliding off. I can get him to here, but I can't get him any further because I slide off. I've got to have my hands come on back down and get a new location and push. And my hands come down. You see how I'm pushing and my hands keep on coming down? So we're going to do the very same thing with our chest. When you turn a guy over, kids will get their opponent started to pin, but they can't finish a pin because once they start to roll, they end up with their chest on top of the guy and not down at the side. They start on the side and on top, and they haven't learned to adjust. This is the hardest thing that you'll ever have to teach a kid in pinning. The hardest thing there is to learn is to stop pushing and adjust back. We have a half Nelson. I get rid of the limb here. I start driving the tree up. I'm pushing into his side here with my chest. Once I get him to here, my chest is now still on his side, but now he's on his side, and I can't push anymore without sliding off of him. So what I've got to do is stop for a second and sprawl down. When I sprawl down, I go from my chest here to my chest here. Now I'm able to push again and get him on over. So it's one adjustment to pin. Drive him to a side, get him up, your chest is too high, adjust back, and then continue to drive. And then when you get him over, you end up chest on chest. If I would continue to drive from the beginning with my chest on his side, and without adjusting, I keep driving, I may get him over, but when I get him over, I have my hips on his chest. I have very little weight on him. You will get back points, possibly. You'll never get a pin, unless the kid's a 1 or a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. But anybody good, you won't hold him there. So, pressure, adjust back, take him on over. Limbs, tree, 9, 12 o'clock. And now what we want to do is we're going to get into the cradles now. And I'm going to show you, this is like an appendix in a book. I'm going to show you the different cradles And these are the ones we're going to go over in segments as we go further into the DVDs. Okay, we have a near and far cradle. Here is a near cradle. I have the near leg tied up over the head, near leg, locking my hands. Okay, near leg. Far leg, I stay right where I'm at. I reach over. I'm taking his far leg and head and locking my hands. So that's a near and far. I have a bottom leg cradle. I reach under and I grab the leg here, and when I drive him down, he's on his side. I have a cradle, but I'm using his bottom leg. Not his near leg, not his far leg, but the bottom leg, bottom on top of. Bottom leg cradle, and then take him on over. Okay, it's a bottom leg cradle. Then I have a far side bottom leg cradle. If I would have, say, a Navy ride, and I'm picking him up here, and I turn it into a cradle. I'm using the far bottom leg to turn it into a cradle. So I have near bottom leg, far bottom leg, near side cradle, far side cradle. I have what I call a clamp cradle. That'll be a whole series. You'll really like that. This is really, really good for the young kids. And you can do it certainly at college and high school level, but it's really good for the youth group as a whole series. A clamp cradle is where you ride them, like when you're riding a horse, you learn to use the muscles on each side of your thigh to ride, hang onto a guy. You do the very same thing here. You clamp onto his near thigh. Clamp and ride here. So when they step up over here, you go into a far cradle, or if he comes up to a near leg, you come over to a near cradle. But we're going to work on clamp cradles, where we start by clamping. We're putting his leg in a cast. It's broken, as an example. And I'm going to pinch his leg together, his thigh with my leg. I'm clamping them together. Clamp cradles. Then we have a crossface cradle. Crossface cradles are typically far cradles that are used with a crossface involvement. Hands over, little finger on the elbow, and a crossface. I drive into him, steps up. I come over. I lock on my own wrist. A different lock. We'll talk about grips in just a second. Here's a far cradle, or a crossface cradle. Okay, and then we have what is called an underleg cradle. These are sophisticated cradles. They're sophisticated because most people haven't seen them, they look like they're off the wall, but they're around a lot. Let's say, as an example, he hits it on a low single. Boom. He hits it on a low single. From here, if I would highlight back over, like you were going to do a freestyle lift, and I just drop down. So he still has my ankle. He's under my leg here. I reach underneath my leg, an underleg cradle, and lock my hands. It's really a near cradle, but I'm doing it underneath my leg. They're underleg cradles. You'll see more and more of these low singles being shot each day. Or if I rode legs here and he dropped down the side here, and he gets here and he starts ducking under my leg. You'll see that. They'll start ducking under here and coming up on you. And once he ducks under there, you're reaching under the leg and lock your hands. Underleg cradles. Okay, and then we have near and far bicep cradles. This is when, on both the near and far cradle, when a guy, you start draping your hand over and they go, oh! And they reach up and they get a hold of your hand. And they're saying, if I got your hand, you can't get your hands locked in a cradle. So they think they're protected. So how do they go about grabbing your hand? They see the hand draping over your head and they do this. They ball up and they get a hold of the hand. So if I'm riding here and I start reaching here and he reaches in with both hands and he grabs a hold of my hand, he's bringing his elbows in. So as he brings his elbows in, I reach down and I lock onto his bicep. Okay? I don't lock my hands, but my hand is now locked onto his bicep, and that bicep is attached to his forearm, which is attached to his hand, and that hand is attached to my hand. So indirectly, I have my hands locked in a cradle. It's called a bicep cradle, near side, far side. So I'm here, he gets his fingers here, I reach down, and I lock on his bicep. It is just as good a cradle, this one right here, okay, as any other cradle there is. You don't have to have your hands locked, just grab his bicep. And you have the same thing. Far side, same principle applies. Okay, I'm driving into him, steps up, and I start reaching here, and look what he did. He grabbed my hands, my fingers, so I can't get my hands locked. But he pulls his arms in order to get them. Okay, fine. Then I lock on the bicep. So he has my hand, I have his bicep, I still have a cradle. As long as he hangs onto my hand, I got a cradle. Even if he lets go, but I don't care. I still have a cradle here, because I'm holding on to his bicep. So, we have near, far, bottom leg, crossface cradle, underleg cradle, crossface cradle, and
the near and far bicep cradle. And that's pretty much the different types of cradles we're going to go over here in the next couple hours. And now I want to go into the different grips we use. And then we're going to get into the myriad of cradles. Then we're going to get into dessert. We're going to get into meat and potatoes to have fun with stuff. So remember these basics. These basics, I'm going to go back and refer to them as we go along in these other cradles. You're going to go, oh, I see how this works. Oh, I see why that was important earlier, and you talked about that. Don't forget the basics. These are the building blocks. You're going to put a skyscraper up. No solid foundation. Skyscraper falls over. Pinning doesn't work without the basics. And the pushing into the guy, the clock, the hands, and how you ride, how do you knock them down. So there you are. We're coming back with cradle grips in just a minute.